Hello and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Red Dead Online, and I know it's been a hot second since we've done that. Basically, I just reinstalled it, and after fixing, of course, the graphical error that always happens when you uninstall and reinstall a Rockstar game, I was able to get back into it, and I just wanted to record another video for you here. So today we're going to be doing a pretty big one. We're going to be ranking all 25 of the unique weapons in this game. Now, this doesn't count variants like the Lowry's Revolver or the High Roller Revolver, because those are just visual variants where the stats are pretty much the same. But we're going to be going down and we'll be rating a number of things, including damage output, accuracy, range, fire rate, reload speed, all those sort of things. So basically just what it comes down to is how good are these weapons on average. You know, if you can have a better one, you probably will have a better one. So that's what we're going to be going through today. So let's just start it off at number 25, which is the Varmint Rifle. And so looking at the Varmint Rifle just on the stat screen here, you can see that there's a lot of reasons for it to be low. And basically I put it down here because it's useful. You use it for small game. But with that being said, it's not useful for much else, especially PvP, but in even PvE situations, the damage output is just too low. Now, if you're in PvE and you are just specifically going for headshots, this entire list is going to go out the window because headshots are king, so damage does not matter nearly as much. But with that being said, the Varmint Rifle takes the number 25 spot. There's lots of different visual variants, but they don't really affect the stats or ranking for this, so I won't consider them too much, but overall, like I said, it's useful for small game hunting, but not useful for much else. So that is number 25, the Varmint Rifle. At number 24, we have the Rare Shotgun, which is a variant of the double barrel shotgun, so I almost didn't include it, but it does have slightly different usability. So basically, like I said, it's just a cosmetic variant, so the stats don't change, but it has worse sights. So if you're using it in first-person mode, the sights are definitely less usable than they are on the regular double barrel shotgun, but otherwise, it's pretty much identical. So it does have some advantages as a shotgun, and the double barrel in general is that the fire rate between two barrels is pretty good and the reload speed is pretty fast, but you do only get those two shots, and the range does drop off very steeply, as all shotguns do. So the Rare Shotgun is, in my opinion, worse than the double barrel shotgun, and it takes the number 24 spot. So let's move on to 23. At number 23, we have the Carbine Repeater, which is the freebie repeater you get at the start of playing Red Dead Online. It is not unusably bad, as none of them in the game are, especially if you're aiming for headshots, but it has the lowest long arm damage and only holds 7 rounds, so for a repeater it falls significantly behind the rest of them. It doesn't have very good range. The only good real strength about it, I should say there's two. It has really low recoil, so it does make follow-up shots really easy, especially once you get used to it, and also it reloads really fast. So it does only hold 7 rounds, but it's a tube reload, so it takes like a second to reload the entire thing. So it definitely has its strengths, and there are some people who love it. I personally just don't find it to be that fantastic. The regular damage on it is extremely low, so you can see we hit 4 body shots on that one, and it took all 4 of them. On that one we managed to do it in 2, but they were of course much closer. So just overall, the low damage and of course suboptimal range makes it one that I'm not particularly a fan of. But that is number 23, the Carbine Repeater. Let's move on to number 22. At number 22, we have the basic revolver. That is the Cattleman Revolver. So this one is, again, it's a cheap entry gun. You get it right away at the beginning of the game, so it's not like it costs a whole lot. But it has the weakest damage and the lowest accuracy of all revolvers. So as far as revolvers go, in my opinion, I prefer them to pistols as a handgun in the game, especially if you're dual wielding. But the Cattleman Revolver is, in my opinion, the lowest tier out of them, just because it has middle-of-the-road reload speed, but rather low damage and accuracy for a revolver, so that's why I rank it fairly low. As far as usability, it's of course perfectly usable. If you're going for headshots, of course, all that matters is that you can hit them. I missed so many there that it was quite frankly embarrassing. But as for body damage, from medium range, it can take up to 4 shots to take someone down if you're not hitting a headshot. And because the accuracy is suboptimal on those rapid fire shots, headshots can't be guaranteed with the Cattleman Revolver. So overall, 22 feels like a real good spot for it. So that's number 22. At number 21, we have the worst pistol in the game, which is the Volcanic Pistol. So this one, I feel like most people probably rank as one of their least favorite weapons. It's not particularly great for anything. I mean, if you get real used to it, the accuracy can be all right. But As for the damage, that's really the only spot where it ranks really well, is because the pistols, unlike the revolvers, have pretty low damage. This one is pretty much revolver level damage, so that is a strength of it. As far as weaknesses, it has 8-round magazine, which isn't horrible, but it does have a really low reload speed. Accuracy is all right. You know, if you take the time to take your shots, you can manage to hit some halfway decent headshots most of the time. But overall, I just find that its weaknesses outweigh its strengths. So the volcanic pistol takes the number 21 spot. At number 20, we have the Springfield Rifle, which is a single-shot breech-loading rifle. Strengths on this one, it does have a high raw rifle damage, so for a non-scoped rifle. But weaknesses, of course, the single shot brings down to every single time you're taking a shot, you're reloading. So, you know, depending on how you feel about that, it keeps your reload very consistent. So you never have like a burst speed where you have 5 or 6 rounds really quickly, but then you have to take this big long reload. But you are reloading after every single shot. So when follow-up shots count the most, that's definitely the biggest weakness. I like it as a hunting weapon, and of course, like I said, the damage output is fantastic. So if you're using a rifle for those quick snap headshots, especially on PvE enemies, then it can be a solid enough weapon, and I like it for roleplay reasons. But realistically speaking, there's just too many weapons that are a lot better. So that's number 20. Coming in at number 19, we have my personal least favorite revolver, which is the double action revolver. So this one does have the highest rate of fire, especially when dual wielding. With 2 of these double action revolvers, you can definitely fire off a lot of rounds very quickly. However, it also is extremely weak in quite a few areas, namely accuracy and range, which are the 2 strengths that revolvers have over pistols in the game. So in my opinion, the double action revolver, although, you know, like I said, yeah, you can fire off a lot of rounds really quickly with it, the damage output is not very good, and the accuracy and range is horrible. So if you want to go for high fire rate, you're better off just going with one of the higher level pistols. But yeah, that's the double action revolver at number 19. At number 18, we have one that may be controversial, but it's the improved bow. So basically, there are 2 bow type weapons in the game. You have the regular bow and the improved bow. If you have the option to have the improved, it's just better in every way than the regular bow, so you might as well go with it. But I would place either one that you have at this point. So it's got a lot of strengths, honestly. Now, the weakness, obviously, is that you have relatively reduced range, but the good side is it's a great stealth weapon. It has, especially if you're using Deadeye, the range, you know, definitely improves to a pretty substantial point. But the main thing is ammo variety with this one, realistically, because your regular arrows deal tremendous amounts of damage, especially on headshots. Small game are the only way to take out small game and maintain perfect corpse status for the really, really small animals. But then you have poisoned arrows, which do extra damage over time, fire arrows, which light things on fire, dynamite arrows, which is a grenade launcher, and tracking arrows, which help you take down animals that take multiple shots, or, you know, to track enemies. So like I said, especially if you're using Deadeye, it's a pretty dang good PvE weapon, you know, for going for headshots, but raw body damage on it isn't terrible either. The only weaknesses are, of course, you know, it's a bow, not a gun. So that's why I put it at number 18. Let's move on to number 17. At number 17, we have the sawed-off shotgun, which is a sidearm, and it's the only sidearm shotgun weapon, so a lot of people definitely like this one. I don't love it for basically just, you know, the range problem. If you're up real close like this, it's a really solid weapon. And if you're dual wielding it, you of course have a double tap option where you have 4 rounds at your disposal. So it can be very, very effective up close. The main weakness, and the one that makes me rate it as low as I do, is just the fact that it has absolutely no range. All shotgun damage falls off pretty quickly, you know, within like 20 meters, but this one is even worse because of how short the barrels are. So the sawed-off shotguns, like I said, as far as their biggest strength, if you're up close and you're dual wielding them, you have 4 basically one-shot kills, and even if you miss your first one or have a suboptimal shot, you can double tap really, really effectively. But anything past that and it's pretty much useless. So that's why I put it down at number 17. Let's move on to number 16. At number 16, we have the rolling block rifle, which is quite effective for a lot of different things, but it is famous for being the highest single shot damage rifle / sniper rifle type weapon in the game. So it is a one-shot weapon, a lot like the Springfield rifle, which we already looked at. So that, I guess, is the only downside of it, because it does tremendous damage. If you're using express ammunition, it's a one-shot kill anywhere on the body, so that's the nicest thing about it, and why some people like it a lot more than other rifles in the game, because you can just do tremendous amounts of damage. But like I said, that fire rate really brings it down in a lot of people's opinions. But overall, you know, it is super accurate and it does a ton of damage, so that's why I put the rolling block at 16. Let's move on to number 15. At number 15, we've got a controversial one, and it's the elephant rifle. So this one does insane damage. It's the highest non-explosive single-shot damage output weapon in the entire game. It looks like a big double-barreled shotgun, but it is classed as a rifle, so you do have that range increase. So as far as the elephant rifle goes, like I said, 90 base damage for it with regular ammunition. Ammunition makes it, you know, the highest by far of any gun in the game. Weaknesses on it, it does only carry 2 shots, so that is a weakness, just like the sawed-off shotgun and the rare shotgun. And the recoil can be brutal. So you can see standing like that, we take a lot of recoil. If we crouch when we shoot it, there's actually a really funny animation where it will knock us over backwards. So it's something that I quite enjoy. One of the nice things about it is that if you use Deadeye for it, because of that ridiculously high damage and the fact that it is in fact a rifle and not a shotgun, you can actually take out most enemy types from very, very far away distances with pretty much any type of a Deadeye shot, so you don't have to be careful at all. But as I've said, the weaknesses on this one are substantial, so that's why I don't rate it any higher than this. At number 14, we have the double-barreled shotgun. So this one is better than the rare one for, if no other reason, than the fact that the sights are just a little bit better, and you can do the improved sights because it is customizable. So it gets a little bit better accuracy, but otherwise it's the same. So I actually quite like it. So one of the fun things that a lot of people don't consider about the double-barreled shotgun is that, yes, it only holds 2 rounds, but they do reload really quickly, and that mid-round fire rate is ridiculously good. So you can put them down really fast, and it makes that double tap extremely effective. So like I said, doesn't really matter at all. The weaknesses, of course, you know, only 2 rounds, and a totally manual reload for them. So if you're facing off against other shotguns that have similar damage, you are going to have a slight weakness there. But yeah, 14 feels like a good spot for the double-barrel shotgun. Number 13 goes to our second repeater on the list, the Litchfield Repeater. So this one does have the highest damage for any repeater, and so some people put it at number 1, but in my opinion, the harsher recoil and the long reload speed for less ammunition make it a less desirable weapon. And quite frankly, the time it takes for your aim circle to shrink on this one is huge compared to pretty much every other revolver. So as far as mid-range type combat where you're just taking body shots, it's great because of that higher damage, but anything longer range, which is what I typically use my repeaters for, you know, medium to long range, it definitely suffers in that regard. So that's why the Litchfield takes the number 13 spot. Let's move on to number 12. At number 12, we have the semi-automatic pistol, so a better option than the volcanic, but still not the best as far as pistols are concerned in the game. This one has the quickest draw and aim down sight speed and reload speed for any of the pistols, and it has an 8-round magazine, which is not bad. As far as cons, it has the lowest pistol damage. So, you know, you've got a lot of strength to this one, and people will use it for melting enemies, you know, because you can fire so fast, and then you can reload ridiculously fast as well. So it's great for that type of stuff. You don't have to worry about accuracy at all, but it does have the lowest damage. So if you're not trying to shred enemies, or you just don't want to rip through ammo quite so fast, you know, it has its weaknesses. But yeah, the semi-automatic pistol is number 12. Coming in at number 11, we've got another revolver that I quite like, the Schofield revolver. So this one is extremely good for headshots because your headshot bracket on this one is really tight. So if you're snapping headshots all the time, and therefore you like revolvers, which is a position I oftentimes find myself in, the Schofield is one of the better weapons for that, because you can really take out them headshots pretty dang good. It's forgiving, the RNG loop, I should say, because as all weapons in this game work, you have your accuracy loop, which tightens over time with aimed shots, but the RNG changes inside that loop depending on the weapon. That's why some, despite having the same size loop, feel less accurate. It's because they are less accurate. Whereas this one definitely tightens it really quickly. As far as cons to this one, it has a pretty modest rate of fire, so you definitely can't fire ridiculously fast with this one, even dual wielding, but it's not horrible, so I still find it to be pretty middle of the road. But yeah, that's the Schofield revolver, which takes the number 11 spot. At number 10, we've got one of my favorite shotguns in the game, the pump action shotgun. So this one has very, very high damage, and it's the best shotgun as far as range is concerned, so that's why I've placed it here. As far as weaknesses, it has a smaller magazine and a slower cycle time than some of the other shotguns, so it's still really, really good. And like I said, as far as range goes, you can't beat the pump action shotgun for a shotgun. Even the double barrel shotgun suffers compared to it. And of course, as most shotguns is true, the damage is really, really good. But yeah, you don't hold very many rounds, and as far as your between round speed goes, it suffers compared to other shotguns that are higher on this list. But yeah, that's number 10. Coming in at number 9, we have the Lamat Revolver, which is a lot of people's favorite, but I've never been a huge fan of, and it's because of the weaknesses. But that being said, there are objective strengths, which is why I put it at number 9. So, for this one, strength. We have a 9-round cylinder, which gives it the highest ammo capacity out of any revolver in the game. On top of that, it also has a built-in one-shot shotgun, which you can toggle between. So, it kind of doubles as both a high-damage revolver with a high ammo capacity and a single-shot sawed-off shotgun. So if you are dual-wielding and you set them both, it's kind of like having a sawed-off shotgun because you have those 2 shotgun rounds, but you can toggle between that and a revolver. So it does have versatility on its side. Plus, like I said, it does plenty of damage. One of the highest damage revolvers in the game for sure, making it one of the highest damage handguns in the game. That being said, the weaknesses on this one are big, and they're what makes me not really like the Lamat, and it is that it has the worst accuracy out of all of the revolvers. So even the semi-automatic, or not the semi-automatic, the double-action revolver, which has pretty bad accuracy, this one is even worse than that. And of course, the reload speed on this one is a nightmare. It is ridiculously long. So that is why the Lamat Revolver, despite its strengths, which are pretty big, takes the number 9 spot, and I cannot realistically put it any higher than that. So that's number 9. Let's move on to number 8. And number 8, we have the repeating shotgun, which is another one of my favorite shotguns in the game. I like the pump action a little bit more, but this one is very cool for lots of reasons. For one thing, lever action shotguns are awesome. And for another thing, stat-wise, it is just very, very good. So the repeating shotgun, strength on this one, it has a repeater-sized tube, so it gives you pretty solid ammo capacity, and it is equal to the highest shotgun damage, so it's tied for the highest damage for any shotgun in the game. Weaknesses on this one, it has the slowest round chambering rate out of any shotgun. So when you're firing this one, your time between shots, for repeating shotguns that is the slowest out of all of the shotguns in the game. So the double action obviously has a very fast one, or the double barrel has a very fast one, as I said. The pump one is a little bit faster than this one, and then some other ones, namely the core other one that we haven't looked at yet, has a much higher than this one. So I find it, as far as shotguns go, fairly on par with the pump action shotgun, but it is a fairly solid weapon. So that's why it takes the number 8 spot. At number 7, we have the bolt action rifle. So the second rifle that we're taking a look at, or I guess third if you count the elephant rifle. So strength on this one is high damage, and of course you can use the iron sights, and the mid-range scope gives you lots of different range options. So pretty good strength there. As far as weaknesses, it does only hold 5 rounds, so you only have a 5-round magazine on this one, and the rechamber rate is pretty slow on it compared to other rifles that you could be using in the game, or repeaters, depending what you're using it for. But it is a pretty good headshot machine because the accuracy on it is nice and high, and the damage is still high enough that body shots can be an effective way to use the bolt action rifle. So like I said, most people will have an opinion on which one they prefer between the Springfield rifle and the bolt action rifle. I personally find, other than hunting, where I think the Springfield rifle is a slightly better weapon, I find the bolt-action rifle to be a pretty serious upgrade over that one. But that is the bolt-action rifle at number 7. Let's move on to number 6. Coming in at number 6, we have another repeater. This time it's the Evans repeater. So this one is a lot of people's favorite repeater. It comes close for me, but is narrowly beat out by, in my opinion, the best one in the game. But the Evans is a solid choice. So this one has a 26-round pan magazine, which is crazy. You can load this one and fire for a long time before you need to reload it again, which is probably why it's a lot of people's favorite. On top of that, it has a pretty solid hipfire accuracy. So if you're using it for PvE mobs, it's very, very effective. So you can see fire rate is pretty solid with hipfire. And the damage output on this one is not bad at all. So like I said, the Evans has its strengths. As far as weaknesses, it has the lowest body shot damage of any long arm weapon, so even lower than the carbine repeater for that damage on, body shots. So if you're going for headshots, it's hard to beat the Evans just because of how much ammo it holds. But if you're going for body shots, or you just aren't sure of what accuracy you're going to actually be getting out of it, you're better off going with something that deals a little bit higher damage. But like I said, for a headshot weapon, it's hard to beat this one because 26 rounds is a very, very large ammo capacity. The accuracy isn't as good as some of the other weapons either, so I guess for headshots that does negatively affect it. But yeah, the Evans repeater at number 6 feels pretty good for me. Let's move on to number 5. At number 5, we have the Mauser Pistol, which which I know is a lot of people's favorite weapon in the game, and in my opinion, it is the best pistol in Red Dead Online. Obviously, the 1899 is pretty solid, but it's not a online option. So the Mauser Pistol has some pretty serious strengths for it. It has a 16-round mag, and also has the fastest rate of fire of any weapon in the game, and it also has really good hip fire control. So it's a really solid weapon for if you're doing a rapid fire build, which I know a lot of people really enjoy, especially in PvP. As far as weaknesses, it has the lowest per shot damage of any weapon, or any pistol/handgun for sure in the game, and it is an expensive weapon. You do have to purchase it, and it is up there for that. But as far as, you know, its major strengths being speed and recoil control, you can see you can put out a lot of rounds with this one, and then reload takes very little time. So if you find yourself doing a lot of shooting, the Mauser Pistol is a very solid option, and that's why I put it at number 5. Coming in at number 4, we've got the best revolver and my personal favorite weapon in the entire game, the Navy Revolver. So this one is the highest revolver accuracy plus very solid damage. So in my opinion, it is on par with the LeMat as far as damage output goes, because the difference is so ridiculously small. But the accuracy is so much higher that it makes it not even a competition. The Navy Revolver is better in pretty much every single way. As far as the cons to it, it has a relatively slow reload speed. So once you've expended all 6 of your extremely high damage, very accurate rounds on this one, it does take a little while to reload it. So you can see that process there of reloading is a bit longer. Now, it's not unmanageable, and if you're dual wielding, you of course have 12 rounds at your disposal before you actually have to reload. So I find it to really not outweigh the strengths of how ridiculously good this weapon is. And accuracy notwithstanding, which, you know, like I said, it's definitely a standout for it. The range on it is also tremendously good, which is why I love it so much. If you're going for those long-range handgun headshots, which, if you're riding a horse, is absolutely essential, the Navy Revolver is just unbeatable for a handgun. So that's number 4. Let's move on to number 3. At number 3, we have our last shotgun in the game that we're going to be looking at. This one is the semi-auto shotgun. So as far as strengths for the semi-auto shotgun goes, they're pretty huge. It has the highest DPS inside of 15 meters in the entire game. It does have a 5-shell magazine, and it has the fastest reload of any shotgun. Weaknesses are just regular shotgun weaknesses, which is why this one ranks so high, which is that the damage falls off sharply after 20 meters. So it is not a long-range weapon, but for short-range weapons, it is ridiculous for DPS, because you deal ridiculously high damage, it cycles really fast, and reloads really fast. So it's pretty much unbeatable in the close-range market. Now, like I said, I personally like the repeating shotgun and the pump shotgun more, because I'm usually going for that high accuracy precision weaponry, but considering it's a shotgun, just objectively speaking, that doesn't make up for the difference that this one makes in the close range. So yeah, that is the semi-auto shotgun, which is the best shotgun in the game, and takes the number 3 spot overall for weaponry in the game. Our runner-up at number 2 is another one of my absolute favorite weapons in the game, and that is the Lancaster Repeater. This one is the best repeater in the game, and one of the best long-arm weapons overall, just in pretty much every single way. So it has the fastest TTK at mid-ranges, and it has a 14-round ammo capacity, which, you know, isn't the highest, but it is very high for a long-arm weapon, and gives you just a lot of ammo before you have to reload. So that's a very solid reason to go for it right there. On top of that, it is laser-like accuracy. Using this one at short to mid-range, it is one of the most effective weapons by far in the entire game. I find myself using it pretty much every single time I saddle up and pick a loadout. The Lancaster has a place in that loadout. It's usually my main long-arm weapon, because most times I'm not using a rifle unless I'm hunting or planning some sort of a long-range operation, and that goes double for any scoped rifles. But yeah, that's the Lancaster rifle. Repeater. As far as weaknesses, it has one of the lower damages for repeaters, so it's not as high as the Litchfield, for example, but it is higher than the carbine for sure, and I believe also the Evans. So middle of the road there, but the accuracy, reload speed, and magazine size puts it extremely high for me. So yeah, overall Lancaster takes the number 2 spot in my opinion. And of course that leaves us with just one to take the number 1 spot, and it is not my favorite because I don't like scoped rifles that much, but just objectively speaking, it is ridiculously good. That is the Carcano Rifle, which is one of the 2 scoped rifle options in the game. So the other one, which we've already looked at, is the rolling block. This one has strengths over that. It has slightly lower damage, so that is the weakness of this one compared to the rolling block, but accuracy is still ridiculously high. Damage is still really high, one of the highest in the game overall, but you have that 6-round clip, or magazine I should say, which gives you a lot more versatility than the rolling block does. As far as the lower end problems on this one. The regular damage, compared to the rolling block at least, is mediocre. So if you're doing body shots, it's not as good as the rolling block. And if you're doing against any sort of tanky enemies, so non-human enemies like wild animals or stuff like that, your damage output is not going to be as high when you consider single shot performance. But if you're going by raw DPS, of course, it's much better because that lower damage is offset by the fact that you have very high accuracy and, you know, the ability to fire 6 rounds before you have to reload. So overall, the Carcano is just stupid good, and that's why it takes the #1 spot, in my opinion. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope my return to Red Dead Online was as triumphant as anybody that may have cared at all about it would have hoped for. But that's all for today. Sorry if it was a little bit rambly, but I enjoy playing this game so much, and I haven't played it for a long time, so I really milked this one out. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.